Biomaterials Science and Engineering graduate program. And this is a picture here of the campus. My office and Roberto's office is in this building right here. We actually have a very new campus. The university is a very young university, and you can see the cranes here. People have been, and we have one new person here. So let's just wait a second while we have Mansouri. Welcome. Can you hear us okay? So Mansouri, welcome. And we're going to go through the presentation, and then we'll talk a little more at the end. Let me see here. So yes, we have a brand new campus and also a brand new graduate program. So Materials and Biomaterials Science and Engineering was approved just about 4 years ago. And we have 3 different areas of specialty: the materials for biomedicine. And so I think, Arefe, the topic you were just talking about is very well aligned with that. We have materials for sustainability, and that includes many different things. Anything that is looking at being able to use materials better so that we need fewer materials or longer lasting materials. Any of those can, so most every application may be involved in that. And finally, materials and interfaces for tailored functionalities. There are many different things that fall under that as well. So how about, we've already been doing some introductions, and it looks like we lost the one new person who we might introduce. So, but I might say that I am the graduate chair. And Roberto, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. So, as Sarah mentioned, my name is Roberto Andres Eneguiluz. I'm originally from Mexico City, where I did my undergraduate studies, and then I moved to the United States to pursue my PhD and postdoctoral appointments. I'm on my 4th year as an assistant professor affiliated to material science and engineering. And I work on my group. We work on for spectroscopy of biological interfaces. And in a few minutes, there's a slide where I'm gonna explain a little bit more about the research. Thank you, Sarah.
And Jess, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. Good morning, everyone from California. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jessica Ventura, and I am the graduate recruitment manager here for the graduate division at UC Merced. So excited to meet and connect with all of you.
So thank you. And although we all, each of you very graciously introduced yourself briefly a moment ago, we do have one new person. And, you know, one of the useful things about these webinars is that you may get to meet other students who might potentially end up coming here. And I've sometimes found that finding a group of students that you're comfortable with is also part of selecting a graduate school. So I wondered if we can go around the room and quickly mention again your name, where you're from, and the topical area that you're most interested in, and maybe a little bit about why you're interested in UC Merced. And Kiana, you're already have your camera on. Would you be willing to start that? But you're on mute still. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, as I mentioned, I worked on characterization and production of nanofibers and nanocomposite hydrogels, and I do some work on some special plant that I could use as a drug. So I'm familiar with drug delivery and nanocomposites and nanofibers, and how we could use all of this together and produce products that have a high quality. And I'm really interested in the field of tissue engineering and nanomaterials.
Wow, you have a lot of different interests. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Anakshi, would you like to go next?
Yeah. So hello everyone, I'm Anakshi and I'm from India. And currently I'm a final year undergrad. So I've been planning to pursue material sciences, especially in the fields of electronics, because nanoelectronics and the application of photonics on electronics have interested me since a long time. As a part of electronics, I've also studied various materials like graphene and silicon. So their properties and their applications in the future devices have interested me exceptionally. So that's why I'm looking forward to my graduate studies in material sciences. Thank you.
Great. And Habiba, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Habiba Altaf. I'm from Bangladesh and I completed my undergraduation from Bangladesh University of Textiles and major in textile engineering. And mostly I am interested in polymer material science engineering and major in polymer science. Most in my previous work, I have done research with polymer composite that is based on the fiber material as well as plastic material. So that is also called the green engineering background. So that's why I'm here for looking for something about the material science engineering. Thank you.
Excellent. And Arefa, can you introduce yourself once more?
Hi everyone, I'm Arafa and I'm from Iran. I actually work on antibacterial applications and effects of some natural or synthetic nanopolymer or nanostructures and their potential application on maybe wound or other infections. And I want to pursue my education for learning more about these interests and develop them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mansoure, would you be able to introduce yourself now?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Mansoura Yavari and I'm from Iran. I am a MS holder in chemical engineering and currently I'm working as a R&D engineering in a catalysis company, and I'm interested in catalysis and porous material, especially zeolite and their modification on catalysis like FCC process. And I like chemical reaction engineering, and also I like pursue PhD in chemical engineering. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my presentation here, just a second. There it is. Okay. It seems to want to switch around the slides again. It didn't keep me where I was before, so let me go back to where I was. Okay. So we do currently have 30 faculty in the materials science program. So you can see there's a lot of different topics to choose from. However, today I'm highlighting the faculty who've indicated to me that they're interested in recruiting this year. So some of the faculty already have a group that's pretty much full, and therefore they're not able to take new students. But these faculty have indicated an interest in taking a new student. And so I have a slide for most of these faculty to present a little bit about their research so that you may be able to contact them directly then. So Roberto, would you like to go to talk about your work?
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, very briefly. So we have currently 3 thrusts, research thrusts. all falling under the umbrella of force spectroscopy of biological interfaces. That is, we measure forces at different length scales of biological interfaces. That can be, for example, on the right-hand side, forces generated by cells, epithelial cells or layers of cells, which build an interface and regulate the flux of oxygen and carbon dioxide, for example, in the alveolar epithelium, as we expose or perturb them to different types of aerosols. No? That's one of the main of the active projects currently. And we are capable, we fabricate different types of hydrogels to capture changes in the mechanical and chemical environment, mimicking native tissues. So on the center, you see a marine mussel. So marine mussels are organisms that have found ways to stick very efficiently to any type of surface, particularly wet surfaces. And you probably have tried to glue a broken plate or toys or anything, but before you need to make sure that the surfaces are clean and that the surfaces are dry. So we are investigating particular moieties or chemical groups that can allow a robust wet addition. Okay, so this is for spectroscopy. We use a device that allows us very accurately at the nanoscale to measure interaction of forces. And the last project, but not least, on the left-hand side, we are interested in biotribology at the nanoscale, so nanobiotribology. Tribology is the field that studies bodies in relative motion, and we look for wear, damage, and measure friction forces. And we have about 400 joints in our body, for example, the elbow, knees, our knuckles here, and all of these joints are lubricated by a fluid called synovial fluid. So we are looking into how the molecules from the lubricant bind or stick to the surface of articular cartilage to provide wear protection over the lifespan of a healthy person and control friction forces, also on the nanoscale. So we want to understand at the molecular scale the mechanisms that allow this very efficient tribological system to perform for many, many years. So if you have questions before we move forward, I think this is a good time for briefly clarifying or expanding on one of the particular projects.
Yes, if you have a question, you can either just come off of mute and start talking, or at any time, if you want to raise your hand using the tools at the bottom of the screen, I'll try to keep an eye out to see if anyone has raised their hand. I don't see anyone currently, so I'm going to move forward. Oh, we have one new person.
Thank you, Sarah.
So maybe we'll wait for Chirag to join. Just a second here. So welcome. Is it Chirag? Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's Chirag. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Very glad to meet you. And where are you calling from?
India, ma'am. India. I'm calling from India.
Okay. And we've just heard from Roberto Andresen about the research that's on the screen. And if you have an interest in this, we should make sure at the end we'll return to it. But since we've, in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and move forward. But just keep in mind that if you find any of this, of looking at the mechanical properties of things in the body on a micro scale, you will want to talk with Roberto.
Okay, ma'am, you can proceed. Yeah.
Okay. So next I have Beth Nowotnik. I'm not going to spend much time talking about this one because she's a theorist, and I've gathered from all of your introductions that most of the students on the call are more interested in experimental work. But if any of you are interested in theory, we should return to this and we can talk in more detail about it. So I'm watching for a hand to be raised in case someone wants to highlight, they'd like to hear more about it. So Jennifer Liu, I see we don't have her name on this slide, but this is Jennifer Liu, and she is looking at functional materials for energy applications. And so she has things for green energy. You can see she gets to take lots of interesting pictures, but looking at things for energy storage, electrocatalysis, the catalyst for a variety of things. Stable high energy density redox centers can be used again for the energy storage, and multi-segmented polymer dispersion agents and a soft actuation platform. So she has many different materials that she's working on. Then Jessica Wang is doing work that maybe those of you who are working on textiles, she has an interest in making wearable electronics. So it's being able to make functional materials that are maybe polymeric in, polymeric in nature, and that if you strike them, if you think about trying to put something, say, on your skin or something that you're wearing as part of the fabric, you want it to be functional and you want it to be flexible and comfortable, but if you hit it hard, you don't want to tear it. So you want it to be something that can protect itself. So she's working on materials that when you hit them, this impact adaptive, if there's an impact, they adapt to that and protect themselves. Also things that can be self-healing. She uses 3D printing for a lot of the work she does and uses some interesting different structural materials for that. Then Ashley Martini is working on, does tribology. She does both theory and experiment. What is tribology? Many of you may not have heard of it. It's the study of surfaces moving against each other. So looking at friction, looking at the wear. If you have things moving back and forth, they'll eventually wear out, and thinking of how you can lubricate them. And why does it matter? Everything that moves experiences tribology at some level. And if we can make lower friction, then we can increase the energy efficiency and we can reduce the wear on those parts. So she has both, as I mentioned, both experimental projects and computational projects. Then Alex Noy, I think several of you mentioned working on nanoparticles. Several of you mentioned transport of things. He has a nanofluidics lab. And one of the things they do is to take something that's like a membrane. If you think about if you had a cell that has a membrane on the outside, if you poke, say, a carbon nanotube through that membrane, that can be a way to control the things that can go through that membrane. So he's interested in using that for water purification and things like that. I'm going to go through these kind of quickly, but if you want, we'll come back to any of them, or if you want, you're welcome to take screenshots of any of this, or Jess will share with you later on a recording of this if you want to go back and look in more detail about the research. I realize it's a lot of material to go through quickly, but hopefully you'll spot something that's of interest. This is another group I'd really like to call out, especially those of you who are interested in drug delivery. Patricia Lewang has a group that is looking at how you can take the medicine and get it into the parts of the body that need it, rather than just taking a pill that then takes exposes the entire body. If you can get the medicine directly to the place that needs it, that can be most effective. And I was hoping, actually, her graduate student, who is an MBSE student, came to me a few weeks ago and said, Sarah, we really need more students in our group. And because some of the students have graduated and we don't have many students left, can you help us find a new student? And I thought maybe she was going to join us today. But if you're interested in this group, I'm quite confident that we can set up a one-on-one meeting with you and one of her graduate students to talk about what it would be like to work on this kind of project. She's really very happy with the group and feels that having more students working there would be useful. And here we have Clarissa Nobile. Clarissa has not yet had an MBSE student, but she says that she's interested in having one. And again, she's looking more on the biomedicine side of things, looking at how different molecules interact with things in the body. If any of these areas look interesting to you, and again, hopefully you will have a screenshot of this so that you can go back and look at some of the things in more detail. And I don't have her full name on this, but her last name is here, Nobile. You can look up to see what kinds of publications she's sharing. Again, this is Andre Merrick. The last name is here. And he's looking at some very interesting properties. Many of you have heard about 2D materials. So some of you mentioned graphite. There's moly sulfide. A lot of people are looking at studying 2D materials that are single monolayer. He's looking at making these structures using peptides. So he takes a more complicated molecule and then looks at how you can assemble it so that it will then make a two-dimensional structure. So he ends up with some very interesting different structures here. He has his first MBSE student now. And again, we can put you in touch with his group if you're interested. Tao Yi also looks at biomolecules, and he does some AFM work. He's looking at how the molecules, these large molecules, organize onto a surface. So I think many of you are familiar with atomic force microscopy, and so they use that as a probe to look at the different structures. Again, several of you mentioned interest in nanomaterials, and so you might find this interesting. We do have a couple of centers. In particular, I'd like to mention this center called the Center for Cellular and Biomolecular Machines. And they have two topical areas that you may find of interest: macromolecular assemblies and hybrid devices, and cellular and multicellular systems. They do have a special program that students can apply to called GRISE, but I'm going to skip over this because I think it's only offered to US citizens. And from the introductions I've heard this morning, I think that maybe none of you would be good candidates for this. So I'd like to move directly to talking about the program that we offer. Oh, and we have one more student here coming in. So the program is focused on materials science, and we expect all of the students taking materials science to take 3 primary courses that have that we believe form the foundation of materials science. So MBSE 210 is the structure of materials. MBSE 211, the properties of materials. This year, anyway, we offered them in the fall. There is some discussion about maybe changing the order of these. And then MBSE 212 is the thermodynamics and kinetics. So we feel that it's useful to all of the materials scientists to understand how the materials are put together, what their properties are. The thermodynamics has to do with which of the structures are stable, and the kinetics have to do with how quickly you can get those materials into that stable configuration. So all of our students take these 12 units. We expect, in general, all of the students will take them in the first year. And then there are other courses, a variety of other courses that we expect you to take. One is that we have a seminar. It's just in the fall. It's 1 unit, so you go and listen to a speaker once a week. There's also another course that is once a week for an hour that's about professional conduct. And this is just a general one in that they also include not only some things about ethics, but also about maybe preparing your resume and things like that. So just professional skills that you'd like to have that are maybe not part of your regular courses. Then we have a very long list of possible electives. And in general, and any of those that your advisor approves will be fine. But typically what you find is that each of the professors you might work with will offer one or maybe two graduate courses, and maybe they would offer your first year that you would take the first one that they offer, and in the second year, maybe you might take another one that they offer. But that way you can learn more of the details of the kind of research that you're looking at. I didn't hear any of you talk specifically about applying for the master's, but if you, maybe some of you already have a master's program. If you already have a master's program, you may be able to waive the electives and therefore reduce the number of courses that you need to take. The admissions process, this is actually a very important piece of this. What we find is that students who have the backing of a professor are much more likely to be accepted. And this is why I've introduced you to the professors who are recruiting. Because we are looking at providing funding to all of the PhD students, we need to have a match between a professor who has an active research program that's bringing in funds to support the students. And if we don't have a professor who has funding to support you, then we're really not able to accept you. So it's really very important that you find a professor who says, this is a student I'm interested in hosting in my lab. I do note that students do sometimes change advisors if the first advisor doesn't work out, but this can delay the time to degree. And if the first faculty member doesn't work out, there may be a limited selection. And so your ability to get a professor who matches your interest in research may be decreased. So it's very important that we can find a good advisor for you. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. We are committed to funding all of our PhD students. So that's why we need to place you with faculty members who have the well-funded research programs. Now, matching the students with funding can get really complicated. We do also use teaching assistant positions, especially in the first year or two when you're taking courses. And the teaching experience can actually be very helpful and be part of your education. But as you get to more later in the program, we hope that you will all of you will be in doing research fellowships. I'm here to help, so let me know if you have questions about this. And Roberto is on the call today, especially if you would be interested in working with him. This is a really good opportunity to connect with him. Now, we do have a master's program. The non-thesis master's may be completed in 1 year. The master's degree with the thesis is likely to take longer than 1 year. And it's important to know that we are expecting in general that our master's students are able to be self-supporting. So we may, if we have an extra position, we may provide funding for a master's student, but in general, we're hoping that the master's students will be able to pay their own tuition and their own living expenses. So that is the end of my presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing here and see if any of you have questions. And we do have one more student who joined us. We could go back around and have everybody introduce themselves again, but Halimat, would you, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, would you introduce yourself in terms of what country you're from and what's the area of research you're most interested in? And I may be able to circle back and introduce you to a faculty member that you missed during the first presentation.
Hello, this is Halumat. Yes, you pronounced my name well. I've called from Nigeria, Sorry, I couldn't join earlier because of network, but I'm fine now. I'm a PhD student. I'm aspiring to PhD student, chemical engineering.
Okay, very good. I'm very glad you could join us today. Jess, do you have anything you would like to add to the presentation? In the meantime, all of you can be thinking about your questions. You can come off of mute to ask them or to put your hand up Jess?
Good morning, everyone. I don't have much to add other than if you do need assistance when you're going through the application process, I'm going to drop my email into the chat, and you are always welcome to reach out to me, and we can, either arrange a one-on-one meeting or just via email. I'm happy to kind of guide you through the application process and share more about the requirements and exactly what's needed. And I know it can be a little confusing sometimes, so me and my team are always happy to help. So I'll drop my contact information into the chat right now.
And similarly, I think my email is on the web page, but I will also put mine into the chat in case any of you want. So if any of you are having difficulty in connecting with a faculty member who might host you, I'll be very pleased to try to set up a meeting there. Also, if you decide that you want to apply and you're looking for a fee waiver, we can discuss that possibly. Are some of you interested in applying to other graduate programs? Oh, Chirag, what questions do you have?
Ma'am, I'm thinking about contacting the faculty member, so I should contact directly through the email. Actually, I'm interested in working like functional materials and energy storage. You talked about there was a teacher, a faculty member. I can't remember the name.
So Jennifer Liu, I'll put the name of Jennifer Liu is doing work more on
energy storage and functional materials. So I should contact her through email then. Okay.
Yes,
will that be fine? Okay. So is it confirmed that she is willing to open to accept students? So are they open positions for that new students? Are they open positions? Under that faculty?
So the faculty members that I introduced on the earlier slide, and I think you were one who came in late. Let me see if I can get back to the slide to show you the list of the faculty members. Just a second. We'll see if it behaves itself better this time. Yes, so this is a group of faculty members. Now, I should be clear that faculty members sometimes change their plans. If a student graduates early, or if a faculty member puts in a proposal and gets new funding, they may find all of a sudden that they are in a position to accept new students. However, this is a group of faculty who indicated to me that they would have an interest in hosting new students. And so you can hunt for them and go to their websites.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so
and another thing.
Go ahead.
I would like to ask if what's the process for fee waiver, if what's the eligibility one can find for the fee waiver, application fee waiver.
Okay, why don't you email me or email Jess?
Okay, sure.
And I think everyone sees that Jess put her email in the chat, so you can have that.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Enakshi, do you have a question?
Nothing as such, but it was a great seminar. I enjoyed it, really.
Good. It's good if you found it interesting. It was kind of a very quick ride through a lot of different concepts to think about.
Dr. Kurtz, we did have a question coming through the chat that maybe I can answer really quickly about the requirements for applying. So just so all of our prospective students know, we do have a couple standard application requirements, and then I'll let Dr. Kurtz jump in and explain if there's anything specific that the program wants you to focus on or that you can highlight to make your application more competitive. But for the standard application, we do require that everybody submit their transcripts, and we only need your unofficial transcripts for the application review. And so upon admission, then we're going to ask you to submit your official transcripts. So at least in this, at this stage of the process, just go ahead and upload unofficial copies. And what we look for in your GPA is a 3.0 or above. But if you are not at the 3.0 on the 4.0 GPA scale, we still encourage you to apply because we review applications holistically. So that means we're going to look at all of the different aspects of you that would make you a qualified student. And so one part of that is grades, but then there's other things that we look at as well. And Anakshi just asked about the WES evaluation. So I think everybody on here is an international student. You would not need to convert your transcripts over. You would just upload those unofficial transcripts, and then our team in the admissions department would use the WES evaluation scale to convert them over to 4.0. So don't worry about doing any of that. You just upload your documents and our team will handle the rest. You're also going to write a statement of purpose. Or do you have a question?
Actually, I had a little question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I already have the evaluated transcripts. So like, should I put it in, or like, should I just put my unofficial college transcripts?
If you already have it, you go ahead and just attach it with that same transcript. And then if our team needs to redo it, we'll redo it. But if not, you just kind of made it a little bit easier for us then. So we appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, feel free to
Thank you.
upload that as well. There's two documents that you're going to write. One is called a statement of purpose, and the other one is called a personal history statement. For these documents, what we recommend is that you keep them to about 1 to 2 pages each, single spaced. We have some students who want to write like 10-page papers. And one thing that you need to remember is the people who are reading these papers and reviewing your application are actually people like Dr. Kurtz. So it's faculty admission committees. And so we try to encourage you to write these papers and keep them short and sweet and concise and to the point. And Dr. Kurtz, I don't know if you want to mention anything that maybe you look for in these types of documents from students.
So in general, we're looking for evidence that you'll be able to be successful in graduate school. And being in graduate school requires a lot of, first of all, capability, people being at the top of their class in terms of academic skill and capability to do research. Being able to be patient to work through problems, have the stamina to last for several years through a difficult program. And we may see that evidence because you've got really high grades or really high scores on a test. We also may see it by the letters of reference that are submitted that talk about what you've been able to accomplish that may be unusual in some way. So sometimes students will come from a background that hasn't given them much opportunity, and to be able to rise above that, to come from a place that they don't have much privilege but have actually achieved something significant is important. If you've had the privilege of doing research and maybe written a paper, or even if you have just for a course someplace done a research project where you wrote a report that you turned in. I have one student now who wrote a study. I do renewable energy, and he wrote a summary of renewable energy in Bangladesh. And that paper that he wrote caught my eye as, okay, this is a student who's really taken time, and he explained to me that he had done the research, gone out and educated himself and put together this whole paper. And so I accepted him largely based on that one edition. So look for something, if you think about what is it about you that would make you very attractive and make you stand out as someone who would be a good graduate student. Go ahead and try to add that in. But I do agree with Jess, when you write your statements, try to be as concise and to the point as possible. One of the key skills that we need to have for people moving forward is to be able to communicate very quickly. We often talk about, if you found yourself with the person who might be able to fund your research on an elevator one day, could you, in the 30 seconds between the time you walk into the elevator and the time you get off, catch their attention by telling them about the fantastic ideas you have? So being able to very concisely present what you want to is really very important.
Great, thank you, Dr. Kurtz. Another thing that was just mentioned were letters of recommendation. So we do require 3 letters of recommendation at UC Merced. And the way that that works is when you are completing your application, you're going to put the name and email address of your recommender. And then our system automatically sends them an email requesting the application. So you actually don't need to gather those letters and upload them. We will do the outreach to your recommenders. Finally, for I think almost all of you, we would require either the IELTS test or the TOEFL language test. Unless you are from a country, which I believe, Halima, I'm sorry, I think I kind of jumped in a little bit late, but I think you might be from Nigeria. So countries like Nigeria, where English is the primary language of the country, we would actually waive that language requirement. Or if you've obtained a degree, a higher education degree from a university where English was the mode of instruction, we could waive that language requirement too. So I hope, Mansour, that maybe answers your questions about the requirements, but obviously if you have more questions, feel free to drop them into the chat or unmute and ask away.
And I just realized that I had one slide that I meant to present that somehow or other I skipped over. So why don't I share my screen once more here and just present that one slide quickly. So this is my personal advice about selecting an advisor and a university. One thing is to go out and take the time to read some of their recent publications to see if the kind of research and the kind of publications they're doing are of interest to you. And then talk to the advisor to understand things like what research is planned, and then the management style. I see that some professors ask the students to define their own research project, while others will be in the lab giving them instructions on a daily basis. So you may say, you know, I have an idea of what I want to do, and I'd like to do my own thing and not need to be told what to do by a professor. In that case, you want to work with somebody who's going to give you quite a bit of freedom. Probably the majority of professors are more giving instructions on more of a daily basis, because if they have funding from a grant organization, they may have requirements that need to get completed. And so they need their students to execute the work that's been proposed under the grant. I think you find that you do learn more from a professor who gives you instructions more on a daily basis, but some students actually learn better by working on their own and then just getting feedback from the professors. So understanding that management style is really very useful. Also understanding the lab culture. There are some where the hours, they may be expected to work evenings and weekends, and others where it's just expected that you may work a 40-hour week and maybe you read papers or things on weekends, but that you're never asked to do anything on the weekend. Most are probably somewhere in between, but it's useful to know if it aligns with what your expectations are. And finally, I really encourage you to talk to students in the group. You can ask them about what Merced is like, what have they liked or not liked about UC Merced. We do have actually quite a few students here from Bangladesh and from Iran. We don't have as many students from Nigeria. We have a number from India. It can be nice if you want to be connected to a student who is from your home country, or at least a country nearby your country. I would be pleased to try to make a connection. You may be able to look at our website and identify from the names of the students where they're from. And so feel free to reach out to some of them to ask. But if I can be helpful connecting you with either the faculty member or the student, let me know. So last questions. We've given you more time now. If all of your questions have been answered, feel free to drop off. But we'll hang out a few more minutes in case there's anyone who'd like to talk.
Dr. Kurtz, actually, I have already emailed to the faculties like Professor Nobile, and she encouraged me for applying. Do I need more contact with her, like a meeting or something else?
I think that it would be very good if in January, you would send a follow-up email. And what will happen is that the professors can't just look at your application and say, oh, you're the one I'm going to accept, because they want to look at all the different applications. But once they've looked at the whole list of applications, then they may be in a better position. And at that time, if they have decided that they're interested in accepting you, I'm sure that will be interesting to you. And if they haven't, then it would give you an opportunity to express your enthusiasm about joining them, and that might actually influence their decision. So we start reviewing the applicants December 15th. So that would be next week sometime. I'm not sure how long it will take us to get through all of them and to make sure that all of the faculty have had, many of the faculty are working on submitting grades right now. And I think we really close the applications January 15th. So sometime between December 15th and January 15th, it could be useful to check back with the faculty member. Jess, would you, and Roberto, would you agree with that as a strategy?
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good.
If in your application you've identified one or more of the faculty members who are on the list of faculty members I said were interested in recruiting, then that will help us to match you with them. It gets really confusing sometimes when students will list a set of faculty members, and then it's like, but that faculty member doesn't do anything related to the kind of thing that you said that you're interested in. And then we get very confused. And we don't want to have all 30, we don't try to refer all of the applicants to all 30 faculty. It would just be a lot of noise. So we try to match people up. So help us match you to make sure that we've pointed you to the right. And it looks like we actually have one more student joining here. Though it looks like they're having some difficulty with the audio. Welcome, Blessing. We're very pleased to have you join, although we're almost at the end of the hour and we're looking at wrapping up more than starting. So could you maybe introduce yourself briefly, Blessing? Is it Okoye is your last name? It may be that there's still a problem with the sound or with connecting. So again, any of you who feel like you've had your questions answered, feel free to drop off. And if any of you want to hang out to ask a more specific question, feel free to stay on. Or go ahead and ask your question. So Blessing, I don't know if you can hear us, but I think Jess will be able to send you a recording of the meeting that you've missed here, if you would like. Okay, so you're able, oh, there you are. Can you say something now? You're unmuted. You unmuted for a moment. I think.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I actually got busy, so I sort of missed the major part of